Hi everyone, I'm Molly. Today I'm going to show you how to sew this picnic roll-up. Just open up our sample here. So this is an adorable little roll-up. You can take it out on a picnic with you. When you open it up, you have a spot for your fork and spoon and knife, and then a spot for a napkin that we're also going to teach you how to make today. I love this project because when the weather starts to get nice outside, all I want to do is have meals outside and plan picnics, and this is the perfect little accessory. So let's take a look at our pattern pieces. We have 3 pattern pieces. Your lining is number 1, your exterior number 2, and your napkin number 3. Let's start with our lining. So it's cut 1 in fabric for your lining. This is going to be whatever fabric you want to be on the inside of your roll up. So on this example, it is orange. We're using a blue floral. Your exterior is going to be cut 2, and that will be in this example and today in our gingham. So we have cut 2 pieces out of the exterior, and then in your napkin, you need to cut 2 as well. You could choose to cut 2 of the same fabrics or 2 different fabrics. So for our napkin today, we've chosen 2 different fabrics, our gingham and our floral. Once you have all of your pieces cut, we're going to start by making the notches and markings that you'll need. So we're just going to start with our lining piece, making the notch that's indicated here with this black triangle. So all I do is take my scissors, just make a cut right through that notch, through my fabric and my paper. And then I'm going to mark these 2 lines with chalk, and these lines are going to indicate where your roll up will fold. So I can just make a chalk mark here and a chalk mark here. And then we'll move on to the exterior piece. So this one has 2 notches and 3 markings below. We are not going to mark anything on with chalk on the lines at the bottom of the piece right now. We're going to come back to this later once we've sewn the lining to the exterior. But we are going to mark our notches with scissors. So I'll just cut through my fabric there, cut through this side, and I'm going to move on to decorating my lining piece. So you'll see in the sample here that we've monogrammed the lining. In the pattern piece, we have a spot here. You can obviously add a decoration anywhere you want. This is just where we've chosen to do it on the sample. So you'll see this square that says recommended area for felt decoration. So I'm just gonna kind of place this underneath. I just wanna make sure that I'm not going too close to the edges so that I don't interfere with my seam allowance. I'm gonna pin this down. You could sew this on a machine or you could hand stitch it. I'm going to hand stitch mine just because I think it gives it sort of a more handmade picnicky look. And you could do it any kind of stitch you'd like. So I think I'll do a running stitch on mine, and I chose this yellow embroidery floss for a little bit of contrast. So I'm gonna go through the back. I've got a knot already in my thread. And then I'm just gonna do a running stitch sort of close to the edge. And I've doubled my embroidery floss so that I have a thicker stitch. So once you have your decoration attached, we're going to move on to attaching our ribbons that are going to close our roll up. We have 1 ribbon that's going to be placed on our lining. Find your notch that you marked in step 1. take one of your ribbon pieces. This is a 12-inch piece of ribbon, and I'm going to pin it facing inside to my lining. So one pin there to attach it, and then I'm going to move on to my exterior piece. So I'll use my notches again, and I've got one notch here. I'm just going to attach this to one piece for right now. So I'm pinning my ribbon facing in. And on this step, it doesn't matter which notch or which piece you use for your exterior. It could be here, 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 or here. I'm going to sew these just shy of a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to do what's called a reinforced stitch, which is where I go back and forth over my ribbon a couple times just to make my stitch a little stronger, because this is the point where all the stress on the roll up is. So if I go back and forth, it'll just be a stronger stitch. All right. So I'm just lining up my fabric a little bit shy of the red 1/2 inch mark, and I will pull my pin out. I'm going to go forwards, backwards, forwards. And that'll make sure I have a nice strong tie. Doing it again on my lining. So now that my ribbon pieces are attached, I will work on sewing my 2 exterior pieces together. I can put this one away for a second. I want to take my panel that has not had the ribbon attached yet and make sure that I have my notches matched up. So you can see right now my cut edges, or my ends, my cut edges on the bottom and the top are matched up, and my notches match. If I had this flipped in this direction, they would not match up. One notch would be here and one notch would be here. So you just want to make sure on this step that you have them oriented correctly so that your ends match and your notch matches. And then I'll take this and put it right side to its partner piece here. And I'm just going to put my first pin lining my edges at the top, my second pin lining the edges at the bottom, and then my third pin matching my notches before I pin the rest. So now that I have all of my pins alongside this edge, I'll stitch from top to bottom with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now when I open up, I will have my ribbon sandwiched in between the 2 pieces. I'm just going to go to the iron and press this seam to make it flat, and I'll be back in one moment. So I'm back. I have used my iron to press the seam to get it flat, and now I'm going to attach the lining to the exterior of the roll-up. I want to just put my ribbons kind of tucked up so that they don't run the risk of getting caught in any of my seams. And then I want to make sure that the exterior piece is lined up with the lining so that the notches match. So I have that notch and this notch. They should be aligned with the bottom and the top aligned as well. Again, if I were to turn this around, I would have a notch here and a notch here, and that would not be correct when I sewed them. So I want the notches to match, be in the same position, and then I'm going to take these two pieces and put them right sides together. And this is, again, I can just tuck my ribbons inside. All right, I'm going to begin by matching all of my corners and pinning. It is not super important that everything matches exactly in this step, because once you go to sew, you'll kind of clean up your edges. So I've got my 4 corners, and then I'm pinning my notches. And then I'll continue pinning the perimeter. I want to leave an opening around the perimeter so that I can flip the piece right sides out after this step. The only places I don't want to leave an opening where my ribbon is, but I do want to do it on the side. So I'll show you that in a moment. Okay, so I've pinned every edge. I need to figure out where I'm going to leave my opening. So I want to leave it on one of the 2 long edges, but not where my ribbon is. So I think I'll go ahead and make my opening down here. So I'm going to mark that with a set of double pins. So 1 set of pins here, 1 set of pins here, and this is just maybe 3 inches, just enough that you can fit your hand in to help you flip. So I'll start here at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, turn, 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 and finish at my other set of double pins, leaving this section open. Reached my second set of double pins, back stitch there, remove any pins that are left, and now we're going to trim the corners. So on each of our 4 corners, I'm going to trim the fabric slightly just to make sure that we can get a better flip. So I am snipping across, leaving about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch between my clip and my stitching, and then just sort of tapering some of the fabric away. So 1 cut, 2nd cut, 3rd cut. You don't want to go so close that you trim your stitches off or run the risk of your fabric unraveling to the stitches. Okay. And now I can flip. So I find my opening, I'm going to reach in. All right, so it's starting to come together now. Once I've got most of it flipped, I can reach back in and just with my finger kind of poke out each corner. There should be 4 corners to poke out. And if your corner isn't turning well, you can always get a chopstick or the blunt end of a pencil and just gently push that to make it turn to a 90-degree corner. So this is what I'm looking at now. This is the outside, this is the inside. I'm going to go to the iron and press this. So if you are a younger sewer, you want to get an adult to help you with this step of just pressing everything flat with your iron. So I'll be back in a moment. I've pressed my roll up flat now, so my edges are nice and crisp. I still have this opening left in my side. Oh, where is it? Pressed it too well. All right, sorry. Here's my opening. All right, now we're going to turn the bottom of the roll up towards the lining to create the pocket that you see here. So if your marks have rubbed off, you might want to go back and just darken them a little. I need the mark that I've made here, which corresponds to this line, and then the same one on the opposite side, so one here. And all I'm going to do is take the bottom edge, and remember that you want your lining facing up now. So I've got my lining facing up. I'm going to turn the bottom until the bottom edge meets my line, and same on this side. And then I'm going to pin the sides that are touching. So grab my pins. Same here. We want to make sure that our ribbons are not going to get caught, so I'll explain that more in a second. Right. So this ribbon that is behind might get in your way when you sew, so I'm just going to flip this over and kind of tuck it up and pin it to itself so it can't get caught in my stitching. Kind of looks like a little tail right now. Okay. All right, so what I'm doing here is doing a top stitch or an edge stitch along these 3 sides. So not the bottom edge. I'm coming up here, turning, and coming back down. And this will also close up that opening that you left in the last step. So I want to be really close to my edge. I'm going to sew it about maybe like 1/8 of an inch from my edge on this. But whatever you can do is fine. And if you go farther in, it won't change anything. And I want this ribbon facing out. It's the other one that I've tucked away. When I get to the corner, I pivot. And now it's time to sew my dividers on. So you'll see in the sample, the dividers are sewn on this side of the roll-up. So not the side that the monogram is on the other side. And we're gonna use our pattern piece here, sorry, this one, the exterior piece, to mark where we have to make those dividing lines. So remember I told you in step 1 not to mark these. It's because we're gonna mark them right now. So I want to line the first dark line should match your stitch line. So it matches the stitch line here. This stitch line is going to be one of my dividing lines. So I don't really have to mark that because the stitch line can be the seam can be my guide, but I am going to mark this one and this one. And I'm just gonna put like one pin there, one pin here. On this one, I'm going to follow my seam with my stitch, and on these ones I'm just going to extend that line down. You could, if you wanted right now, just with a straight edge, you could do it with paper, make a line going down, and you could use a ruler if that helps you. I do have to be very careful now that my ribbon is tucked out of the way again. So on this side, I'm going to pull my ribbon back and pin it. So I am pulling it towards its partner ribbon over here. If I do it this way, I'm going to end up getting it stuck in my stitching. Moving on to my other two lines that are marked with a pencil. Ribbon is out of the way. Last one. Okay, I will clip my stitches. Remove any pins. And now my roll up is finished, so I can take my silverware. But I'm missing my napkin, so let's work on our napkin next. Moving on to our napkin, this is a pretty simple piece to sew. We've got our lining and our exterior. All we do is take them, put them right sides touching, so right sides together. Both of them are squares, so you don't need to worry about notches. They should match up any way that you place them together. And then I'm just going to pin around each edge. And when I sew, I will leave an opening. And you just don't want the opening to be on a corner. It should be on a straight edge. So I'll choose to make my opening here. Double pins. I'm going to stitch at my 1/2 inch seam allowance from this set of double pins around to this set. Set of double pins, I'll stop, take out my pins and then trim my corners just like I did in my roll up. Trim my threads too. So across my corner and then taper, taper, being careful not to cut your stitching. Then I will flip through my opening, pop out my corners. And again, you might want to go in there with chopstick or a pencil. I will head over to the iron right now and just press this to get it to lay flat. My napkin is now pressed flat and I still have that opening here. I'm just going to finish with a top stitch around each edge, closing that up, and I'll just put 2 pins to keep that closed while I sew. Let me trim my threads. All right, you have your napkin and your roll up, so it's time to put our napkin away. Fold it up in quarters, stick it in there. There we go. So exciting. All right, let's roll it up. Okay, we'll flip it over. Tie her up. Time to go have a picnic and enjoy. Thanks for watching.